Welcome to Global One Media Stocks to Watch. I'm Michael Swido. I'm speaking today with Rahim Allani. He's on the board of directors of Hispania Resources. They're a Spanish mineral exploration company listed in Canada. Rahim, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We talk to a lot of companies in the mining and clean energy space here on Stocks to Watch, but I think you're the first one I've spoken with that has a project focused on tin. I gotta say, tin is not as sexy a metal as gold, lithium, or even palladium, but it sure is used in a whole bunch of products, from food packaging to electronics and even superconducting magnets. Now, your company is looking at reopening a tin mine that closed down some 40 years ago and has changed hands a couple of times since then. Tell us, why is that? Why are you interested in tin?
We do have a couple of projects in Spain, and this one came to our attention actually because the entity that was selling it put out a tender on a couple of their projects, and our CEO had formerly bid on this project and he knew it. So it bode well in our favor, and we were able to get to a quick close on it. And if you had asked me 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago if I'd be interested in tin, I probably would have said no. And why would anyone want tin? But the more you learn about tin, the amount of tin that you're going to need in the world, we're going to be in short supply. There are a few producers that are big tin producers, and there isn't really a junior market for tin. And so we're optimistic that we'll be one of those entities that will be able to provide sort of that next stage up of where tin's going to be or where tin's going to go. And the reason we like this asset specifically was simply because of the infrastructure that was in place around it, as well as the quality of asset.
We'll talk a bit more about infrastructure in a moment. But first off, the market for tin, it pretty much collapsed at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Since bottoming out in March 2020, tin prices have rallied, then they crashed, they rallied again. Are you concerned at all about tin's volatility and the economics of the project?
The volatility of tin, again, it's better than where it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, where there was no volatility in the price of tin and it was a very sort of muted commodity. So we have no issues with the fact that it bops around. It's actually a good thing that it does bring attention to tin. So we're not concerned with where pricing ends up. Like I said, based on the fact of where this project was, the size of it, we feel like we picked it up for a really good price. And if we can get it back into, the state of production that it was formerly at, we'll be in a good place. We're not worried about the economics of it. We're not worried about any of those sorts of things, just because of the fact that this type of an asset, almost anywhere else in the world, or even in Spain, would have been multiples higher than what we paid for it. So I think at the end of the day, regardless, we'll be okay on it.
And that's always a good thing, right? You want to buy low, sell high. You want to come into a project at a good value. Tell us a bit more about it. You've said that it's changed hands a few times. There's already infrastructure there. Set the scene for us.
So this is, a town in Spain you probably would have just passed on your drive from Lisbon to Seville, as an example, or if you're going from Madrid to, down to Seville, different towns that you would have passed. So you wouldn't have even noticed this town, but it's a small town, about 1,500 to 2,000 people, EU paved roads all the way through, which is fantastic. And the existing infrastructure that's in place is, in theory, what they use for a producing mine, going, like you had mentioned, going back, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So we've got a ramp, we've got declines, we've got shafts that are all in place. And to build that would have cost us a lot of money. So we've already got that all in place. There is some existing infrastructure there, as well as storage facilities. There's an old tailings pond. There's some old equipment. We'll have to, obviously update all of that. But it all exists. The footprint for a producing mine is there. So we can get right down into it, which is fantastic. And the key part, I think, is that there's a supportive community. We were actually just in Spain last week and met with the mayor of the town, and he had formerly worked on the project. And he knows the individuals that were the end of mine geos, and they all basically know what's there. A 2.5 million ton deposit. There's a potential another 3 million tons that are there, and you're looking at 0.25 tin. So it's a really nice size asset potentially. Access to roads, access to power, access to infrastructure that's needed, supportive government. And what was interesting on this actually most recent trip is we were leaving our site, And about 15 to 20 kilometers away, there's a very large open pit tungsten producer. It's an Australian company. And the fact that they've got into production, you've got people, you've got jobs, you've got, a brand new restaurant in a small town that I hadn't seen in all my time going to Spain, a brand new restaurant being open there. So the mayor of our town, which is Lumbrales, is very keen to have us going again because he wants those people, those jobs, those things coming back to his community.
So it sounds like your talks with the local community are going really well. What about with the
Extremely.
mining authorities?
Again, same thing. They've been very supportive. Spain is obviously, it's broken up into different regions and provinces. So our talks with the regional mining authorities, everything is good. We've given them our plans. We told them what we want to do, and they're on side with us. We met with them, I think it was November, when we went up to Castellón, met with them, went through our plans with them, and we've been working with them since we first won the tender, which was just over a year ago. So we've been working with them on our plans for Lumbrales.
What comes next? How close are you to production on this?
It depends on money, like all things. So this one again is a bit of a different animal in that we could, in theory, go with debt just on this project because the money is being used for physical equipment, assets, things of that nature. So in theory, you could go looking at debt if you wanted to. You could do it with equity and leverage that. So it's as fast as the capital comes that we could get that thing back into production, and then spreading the dollars around to the different assets that we've got.
And just give us a sense of how much capital you need.
Again, it's a function of how big you want to go. Like if you wanted to do a small debt piece, as an example, you could go as small as like 5 million in debt. You could bring in you could revamp the existing infrastructure, reopen the ramps, and start taking out the tailings, as an example, just to get some revenue in the door. So that's one example that you could go with. If you had equity and you wanted to leverage that, then you could go do a fulsome study at site and go look for additional targets that you want to get into, because we do believe it is a large asset versus just going where the infrastructure is. So it really depends on how much capital you've got and how much you want to spend.
All right. Well, tin is not the only metal that you're interested in. Your properties also have zinc and copper. One of them, I understand, dates all the way back to Roman times. It's called Otero, and you acquired it for 1 million Canadian dollars just a few months ago as part of a fire sale when another company was being liquidated. Tell us more about it.
So actually Lumbrales and Otero were both part of a package that we bid on at the end of 2022. Yeah, excuse me. We bid on it. There was a local organization that had to basically close their doors, and they gave everybody 10 days to bid on some assets. And luckily, our CEO knew these assets. He had previously bid on 3 of their 5 assets about 7 or 8 years ago. So our diligence was kind of already done, which allowed us the ability to bid quickly versus the other bidders that probably would have needed a lot more due diligence time. And so we came in, like you said, for $1 million bid. We didn't think we'd get either of them because the last time he bid on those 2 assets, he bid 9 million euros. And he had a deal at 9 million euros to get them. He wasn't able to close the deal with his partners then. And so, we picked up both of them for $1 million. So we're quite excited about the fact that we got them for such a discount. And that's $13 million based on metal prices from 7 years ago. Both copper and zinc, as well as tin, like you'd noted, have gone up significantly since then. So we believe our in-ground value just on those 2 assets is worth exponentially more than the 13 million that he bid at that point. And so we got it for a pretty good discount. And then, like you'd mentioned, Otero dates back to the Romans, is when they used to come there looking for gold and copper, and they called it the mountain of mining. Is actually the name that they gave it affectionately, and it's been in production over generations. Been in productions, it's been drilled, been re-drilled, been looked at. So again, we're exceptionally happy to have picked it up. There are some existing holes that we can twin. And again, government support, they want to see jobs coming back there. They want to see mining coming back there. So we're quite excited about that project just because of the size of it.
I got to say, I'm kind of flabbergasted when I hear the numbers that someone bid like 9 times or more what you bid for it a few years ago. They didn't get it, and you've come in at $1 million and pick up the property.
Yeah,
And you know, the assets there sound like they're really quite rich.
we think so.
There's one other project you all have. It was your old company's first project called Pueblo de la Reina. It's on 9,000 hectares. Looks like there might be copper, zinc, and lead on the property. Just give us a real quick overview.
Sure. Yeah, that was our first one when we first started this company going back about 5 years. That was the first asset that we bid on, and we got into a transaction with a local gentleman and came to terms to purchase the property off of him. So that project has changed hands twice. The last time it was worked on significantly was by a company called Otero in the late 80s. And we were told actually just recently that they actually didn't want to give up the property, but just because of their recalibration of what they were doing, because they're a large company, they had to end this project. It's a zinc rich project. We believe there are at least one, maybe two other sites that we will be able to exploit. We're going to do some airborne geophysics to just get a sense of how big this property can be, because it is quite large. And the numbers that we've seen are fantastic. We've seen, 1.6, 1.8% copper and 11% zinc. And again, going back to the original drillers on the property, going back to the 80s, one of the gentlemen told us that when he drilled, one area he found up to 30% zinc. So he doesn't remember exactly where it was, so we're gonna have to do some homework to find it. But it's on our property, and we think we'll be able to find some really high grade targets. Again, same thing like Lumbrales, small town, 2,500 people, exceptionally supportive mayor, and all the people there. They know what Puebla used to be, or the Herrerias permit used to be, going back 30, 40 years. So they're quite bullish on what we might be able to achieve there.
I can't wait to hear more about it as that project progresses. It sounds really exciting. I want to take a step back. You're one of two directors for Hispania Resources. You've been working in the capital markets for 20 years. You're Canadian. You went to University of Toronto. So why get involved with the Spanish company?
Yeah, so there are three directors: myself, Eduardo Olarte, who's in Spain, and Norm Brewster, who's the CEO and director. The reason, quite frankly, is I've known Norm for probably 10, 15 years. And he told me one day that he wanted to look at doing another deal, and his pedigree in Spain particularly, but across the world, he's done a lot of mining work and over the last 45 years. And one day he called me up and said, "Hey, I want to do one more." And I said, "Okay, if you find something, let me know and I'll get into it with you." And I said, as long as it's not in Siberia or somewhere that's going to be difficult to get to, because he's done projects in all these places. So he called me up one day and he said, "Okay, I found something in Spain." And I said, the place where the last company you started in Spain, you sold it to Trafigura for $996 million. So yeah, I'll look at the same geography with you. So yeah, that was it. So I've learned about Spain over the past 5 years, and thankfully I used to be fluent in Spanish, and that's kind of coming back to me again. But yeah, it's the same team. It's one of those things in mining. You get a guy that knows what he's done in that particular geography. You bring in the same lawyer, you bring in the same geo, you bring in a bunch of the same guys. Then in theory, 1+1 should equal 3. And I'm the new piece to it, definitely for this team. But I'm hoping that we can have the same success that he saw when he did Iberian.
I get it. I mean, Spain, hardly a hardship posting. And if you're working with someone who's had such great success in a deal before, I mean, wow, who wouldn't jump at the opportunity? All right. So speaking of growing, I want to take a look at the investment side of the equation. But I got a question for you. Are you a sports fan?
I am.
Because you all have really an amazing ticker symbol. The ticker symbol for your stock is ESPN.
It is.
So your stock is trading pretty much at the midpoint of its 52-week range, around 15 cents a share. Tell us, why should our viewers consider investing in your company? Why is it a stock to watch?
We think it's a stock to watch. I mean, in a down market, we went public at 15 cents. We've traded between 8 and 19 cents. And we really haven't gone out to tell the story too much yet, quite frankly. We're just doing that now because of the past, 14 months, we've been working to acquire these two other large properties. And so now that we have them, we can actually start doing work on them. We can actually get out there and tell the story now. So I think we're at the starting point of our story. A, B, the fact that our, we've got good shareholders and that our stock hasn't, like other smaller caps that have been hit a little, unfortunately. What happens in these markets, smaller caps are the first ones to get hit. So I think we've held our own with the supportive shareholder base. And like I said, we're just starting to tell the story. We're just starting to get it out there. And critical minerals. Everyone's talking about critical minerals. So tin, zinc, copper. We check all the boxes. So I think we're going to be a great story to look at. Safe infrastructure, good place to do business, supportive government, a team that's done it before. So I think we do tick a lot of the boxes when you look at a mining opportunity. I don't think it's as speculative as some other things might be. So we believe we have a lot of the things that people will be looking for in the base metals, critical metals investment space.
Well, it certainly sounds like you have a good story. And if I've heard properly, there are a number of insiders in the company who have invested in it. And people who watch this show, they know that whenever I hear that people are investing in their own company, I always think that's quite a bullish sign. Rahim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We've been speaking with Rahim Allani of Hispania Resources, and you've been watching Global One Media Stocks to Watch. I'm Michael Suarez.